there and welcome. It's me, JP. It's time for another John Parks workshop, and we have arrived right here, right now, together for this moment to happen. So thank you for stopping by. First of all, who am I thanking? I'm thanking you, the viewers. We've got some people over on YouTube. We got the chat happening in Discord. If you're watching over on Twitch or Facebook, you might want to check out the chat over on Discord. It's adafruit.it/Discord. And that's where you'll find all that good stuff happening. I think I saw just the other day that we passed some sort of huge milestone of 27,000 members or something like that. Is that true? Someone answer me in the chat. I think that's correct. I think we have a heck of a lot of members over on Discord. Wow. So thank you. And let's get going, right? Let's do this. We got some cool stuff to look at today. First of all, I'll start with our jobs board. If you didn't know, we've got a jobs board. You can head over to jobs.adafruit.com and you can take a look at people who are ready to work. So look at that. If you may be familiar, we have a job board that posts jobs, but you can also post into the available for hire section. So there you'll see some different engineers, embedded developers, art and design, retail artist, designer, fabrication, technical designer, model builders, draftspeoples, all sorts of people looking to do some work for you. So if you're looking to hire someone, could be a contract, could be freelance, could be short-term, could be long-term, permanent, remote, on location, all those things are possible. This might be where you'll look for someone and find that perfect person. So head on over to jobs.adafruit.com and take a look today, right now. And like I said, it's free. It's always been free to post. It's free to post a job, and it's free to post your resume. So what are you waiting for? Do it. Right. What do we got next? You may know that I do a product pick show on Tuesdays. That is JP's product pick of the week, or JP Papow, as I like to call it. And it was a double feature this week. We had two product picks of the week. I even had to modify the logo there and put an S on the pick to make it plural. Why don't we have a look at a little recap, a little 1-minute recap. These are my two product picks of the week. The MCP 4728 Quad DAC breakout board, and we've got the Raspberry Pi Pico. I've got the Quad DAC board, and I have it running over its stemma QT through a breakout cable into the appropriate pins on my little Raspberry Pi Pico here. As I move this potentiometer, I'm changing that little dial there, which is what the Quad DAC is doing, is sending out voltage, analog voltage, to that meter. All that's running on this little Pico board. Those are my product picks of the week. It's the MCP 4728 Quad DAC breakout board with stemma QT, and it's the Raspberry Pi Pico RP 2040. All right, yeah, so whoa, sorry, a little loud there. Those were the product picks, and I'll actually talk about another Pico thing in a little bit. But it is, I think, out of stock now. There will, of course, be many, many, many more coming into stock. They're $4, so you may want to stock up when you see them. I think Adafruit has going to keep the limit for now of 3, a maximum of 3, although you can also get the one with loose headers, so you could get 6 in one order, just to keep people from stockpiling them to scalp or anything like that. Not that we would accuse anyone of anything, but someone else might, right? So check those things out. They're pretty handy. All right, let's see. What do we want to do next? Oh, you know what? How about let's take a look at a MakeCode Minute. I'm gonna do that next. Yeah, let's do that. All right, so for the MakeCode Minute today, I wanted to talk about a brand new feature inside of MakeCode Arcade. So here you'll see I've got MakeCode Arcade loaded up, and in fact, let me try to make this a little bit bigger so you can see a little more of what we're doing. Oh yeah, look at that. There we go. So there's lots and lots of MakeCode Arcade for you to look at. I've loaded up one of my game picks of the week from the past, which was this Mini Galaga game. We're not going to look at the gameplay, we're not going to look at how it's coded, but we're going to look at this really terrific new feature that the MakeCode team added, which is the asset browser. So you'll see here up at the top of my interface for MakeCode Arcade, we have the blocks interface, we have the JavaScript tab, which you may be used to seeing those two, but here's this new one, assets. So what I'm going to do is, let's just go ahead and hit that assets, and I'll widen it by hiding the simulator. So here you can see this is a list of all of the assets in the game. Let me see, can I zoom in on here? I don't think I can, no. So these are sprites that have, or backgrounds that have been used inside of the game. And you, of course, can always find them inside of blocks. So if we switch over to the blocks view, they're going to be in here. There's the background sprite. Here is the ship player sprite. And as you can see by my dramatic representation of this, it is actually a little bit of work to surf around finding the assets if you want to go and change one. So now this asset browser allows you to go in very quickly, pick, let's say we want to change the color of all of these green meanies. We can just click on the asset in the asset browser. From the left, we get a little asset preview, tells us some info about it, the type of asset it is, the size in pixels. We can duplicate it here, copy it here if we want to make a variant on it. This is a really convenient place to do. We can also just pop the sprite editor right open. So this will make it really quickly to go through and make some wholesale change. Let's say it's just going to be pink baddies. Done. That just saved that asset. We could, of course, copy it first if we want to use them in different ways. So this is really terrific. As you know, some of these games can get pretty big, pretty out of hand. You can have lots and lots of assets. I picked a fairly tame one here, but open up one of your favorite games in MakeCode Arcade and head to the Assets browser just to take a look and maybe to edit some of those sprites. And that is how you can open up the new asset browser inside of MakeCode Arcade. That's your MakeCode Minute. All right, the next thing I wanted to do is a MakeCode Arcade game pick of the week. So let's bring back this window here. The MakeCode Arcade game pick of the week this week is Battleship by Shiba JP. Good name. Here's the game. I'm going to click on this, and you can see I have a game actually in progress here, just because it's Battleship. It can take a while. And you can see what we have is my board, where I have my ship layout, and then the enemy board, where I've been placing my guesses. When I use the cursors to move around, I can pick a spot, and then I can press A to try to hit that battleship. And you can see the enemy responds very quickly and also is hitting mine. So we can go through and search for those enemies. I'll restart it real quick so you can see a nice feature at the beginning. First of all, we have this lovely graphic. And when we press A to hit start, it says deploy the ships. And then if you hit A, you'll deploy ships. If you hit B, you'll redeploy them. So this is essentially, in lieu of you painstakingly placing them, you can just pick a selection that you like, a placement that you think will fool the AI. How about that one? I hit OK. I get the first move. I go pick a spot. I launch. Ooh, I got lucky. Hey, look, they missed. So now we go along in typical battleship fashion and remember to say, you sunk my battleship, when someone sinks your battleship. So that is my MakeCode Arcade game pick of the week. It is Battleship by Shiba JP. And you can go and check it out on the MakeCode Arcade channel inside of forum.makecode.com. That's the arcade game pick of the week. All right, what's next, you may ask? Me too. I'm going to have a sip of water. And hey, let's check in on the chat. What's going on over there in Discord? Good afternoon, Gary Z. Hello, C. Grover. And C. Grover says that our audio is in sync. That's good. Hey, speaking of C. Grover, C. Grover is one of our community members. He's also a prolific maker and builder of things. And I wanted to show off something that he sent recently to me to check out, which is a sort of a beta version or a prototype version of this little beauty right here. This is a dual analog to digital converter featherwing that uses the NAU 7802 chip. It's 24-bit. And the idea here is that it will sit on top of a feather, and it has some 4-pin connectors for, in my use case, load cells. So I want to build a little scale that will allow me to weigh both the coffee beans before I grind them, as well as the weight of a shot of espresso when I pull the shot on my machine. So I've got a little scale right now that I move around, and it's not waterproof, it's not coffee proof. So I'm thinking this might be a really fun build to start with this and a couple of load cells and come up with an elegant solution for weighing those important coffee items. So very cool. This has a I'll post something about this once I build it. This does have a library for CircuitPython, so it's going to be coded in CircuitPython. And if you have questions about it, you can head right on over into our Discord chat and ask C. Grover himself, because he made it, so he should have the answers. I believe it also has a Stemma QT connector here so that you could add on maybe a display, which is what I was thinking of doing, is having this on a feather, have it plugged into power, have a couple of load cells plugged in here, and then this will give me a nice little display. Maybe I'll add a button so that I can go ahead and hit reset on it or tear the weight when I set down a cup first. So there's some things to think about interface-wise, but very cool. Thank you so much for sending that to me. I'm looking forward to checking that out, and great build. So yeah, Hugo says in the chat, I was eyeballing some load cells not long ago. Yeah, we have a few load cells. If you're wondering, what the heck is a load cell? Let me pop up our site for you and show you a couple that we have. Let's see. Let's go right here. Let me share this window with you. There we go. So load cell. So strain gauge load cells, we have them for different weight amounts. So I'm thinking the 1 kilogram one is the one to go with because it'll be the most sensitive. And they're not expensive. This was actually out of stock right now, but I think I have one. I hope I have 2 of these. They are $4, not very expensive. I think it's probably roughly the same with the different ones, or the same, yep. And these sort of flex as weight goes on them, and it's a type of voltage divider is how it works. So it can, I think it's, yeah, that's why it's going to be read on this 4-wire interface that's built into this ADC. It's an analog value that it sends out. So it's not always that easy to interface with these, so I'm looking forward to using this chip to try it out. All right, so thank you, C. Grover. Very exciting product to try out, or project to try out. All right, let's see. Next up, I had done the product pick of the week on Tuesday. One of them was the Pico. Something I wanted to show you, something I showed off last night on the show and tell on Adafruit if you saw it. This will be a bit of a repeat, but maybe I'll give you a nicer view here because I've got a camera set up. This is the Pico that I added a, zoom in there and try to refocus. I added some labeling so that we can, come on, focus. That's not bad. Okay. So that we can see what each of these pins are. So right here, this is a sort of stock Pico, except I've soldered on some headers to it on the front. But you can see all of the pin outs. If you want to know where's a ground pin, where's a which of the different power pins, which of these can do I2C, well, all that's on the back side. So when you plug this down into a breadboard using some header pins, it's all gone. So you got to bring up an external reference. So you can see on this one here, I actually don't want to dig it out because it's a pain in the neck to lift it out when you have that many pins. There's 20 pins on each side, and the breadboard really grabs it. But what I did was I soldered in some 90-degree header sockets onto the sides. In fact, I'm going to show you those on the Adafruit site so you know what I'm working with here. Let's do right angle. We have a lot of right angle things. I notice this every time I search. Right angle, getting closer. There's some header pins. All right, let's try it. Let's try adding the word header. There we go. This is what I used right here. So this is a single row, and I think these are 32 position or 36 positions when you get them. So you just snip off the part you don't want. So I've got those soldered in, which basically gives me sideways headers on the Pico, and then I have the header pin version of that giving me a second 90 degrees so that I can pop straight back down into the board. So let me get that out of the way there for you. So I see, oh, someone's sharing over in the Discord. I don't think I have a Discord window ready to share, but someone soldered their headers on the other side. Andy Calloway flipped it over, which is great too. Gives you the pins. You can't access the reset button, which actually you don't. It's more of a boot select button, so you don't need it that much. So I think that this works pretty well. But I wanted to see the top of the board. I wanted to see the LED. I wanted to be able to access everything. And so this was my solution. So this was some graphics that Phil B created for a pinout description of the board. I slid some of these around so that I could show, obviously a lot of these pins do multiple things. So I just wanted to show GP pin 0 and 1 are my transmit and receive for serial, and then SDA and SCL for I2C. I'm using the next two GPIO pins 2 and 3. And then you can see they've actually done a really nice job of laying out on this board very consistent ground. I think it's every, I think it's 4 pins between those sets of grounds, other than what's happening at the top there on one side. Also the pins, I can't show this because I soldered over it on this one here because I put some header pins and I kind of painted some markings on it for myself. But the copper is squared off on the Pico for where the grounds are. So you can tell which ones are the ground pin, which is really clever, very nice. But anyway, you'll see a lot of different solutions come out for this. I'm sure that when you see things like the feather board, that's going to have some pin out on the top. Let me zoom in there real close. You can see, so that's going to have sort of a typical feather pin out on there using this RP2040 chip. But if you're using the Pico itself, there it is. You can see, here's these square pins I was talking about. This one, it just happens to hide the info on the back. So maybe they'll even revise it to put it on the other side. I don't know. They may have some strong feelings about it and reasons not to. But I do know that I wanted to get those visible for my uses. All right, so I think that's what I wanted to show on the Pico. And then one other catching up thing. Let me swap my camera over to this view here over at the workbench. And last week I was working on the capacitive touch board, and it looked sort of like that. I had it on a piece of cardboard, I think. I don't know where that went. And I'm using copper tape. But what I decided to do was neaten things up. I switched it over from a Metro that I had, Metro Airlift, to a Cutie Pi. So you can see now we've got this Cutie Pi on here. In fact, I can zoom up a bit for you. Let me try to focus. There we go. So here's a little Cutie Pi, and then I'm running over the Stemma QT connector to the, what's this one's name? MPR? Yeah, MPR 121 is the chip on there. So this is a 12-key capacitive touch breakout. I have alligator clips running to copper, and then I have that copper all folded around to the other side of the disc. This is just a little 7-inch piece of Baltic birch plywood that I got at a craft store. You could use anything for this as long as it's not conductive or going to act like an antenna and screw up your capacitance. And then the really nifty thing is, I got to zoom out and refocus, is that you don't need to contact that copper. So for capacitance, it's not like resistance. You don't need to close a circuit. It's just measuring you and your capacitance with this little antenna, and the antenna can be hidden underneath a piece of paper in this case, or some fabric. So I made a little printout. I designed a little graphic, printed this out, used some spray mount to put that on top, and now this is essentially a very specific type of USB keyboard. It sends things like the arrow keys are WASD, the mode switch is the right arrow, this may be H, E, R, and P, I can't remember, B for blur. And those are all for this visualizer that I was using, the a music visualizer on the computer made in processing, and Animus is its name. I almost forgot Animus. This could be for anything. So I thought this was a neat technique to look at for anytime you want to build an interface that does not need to be tactile. You don't need physical buttons for whatever reason. You want something that's sort of elegant and built into a display. You could even do this on your desk. You could lay down some tape and cover it over, and you could have a little quick touchpad built right into your desk surface. It's non-destructive, so long as you don't have a steel desk or something like that. It should work pretty well. And it's pretty cool. So that I wanted to show you is just sort of the evolution of that. I've got a Learn guide in the works. I don't know if that's published yet, but I think it's in moderation. And Ann Barella and Lady Ada should be taking a look at that soon. So that is a little update on my project from last week that I wanted to share with you. All right, let's see. Next up, what have we got? I think... Am I missing something? I don't think so. So what I wanted to show is something I'm working on for my next project. This is actually a thing that we conceived during the tail end of making all those MagTag projects for the Ada box. And we just ran into a little bit of a snag that took us some time to get to, so we had other things. And this is it. I'm going to show you a little overhead view. This is a MagTag that will show you upcoming games in the NCAA men's basketball. This could be almost any sport because ESPN has their API version 2, which provides our good friend a JSON file for all kinds of info about all kinds of sports. So it'll tell you, in this case, I'm using its upcoming games schedule. You can show game results, rankings, team names, and pick your sport because there's zillions of them available. So what I wanted to do is show you the API and a little bit of the code so we know what we're working with, and also talk about some plans that I have for where this is going to go. So you can see we have a game tomorrow. Actually, it's relevant to me here in Los Angeles. It's UCLA. The Oregon Ducks are going to be at UCLA playing the Bruins, and that's going to happen tomorrow, the 29th, at 6 p.m. If everything's working right, that's true. If I got something wrong, please don't yell at me if you missed the game. But that's as far as I know, that's the truth right now. So let me grab the URL real quick for this API. And then we'll take a look at it. So one moment here. And the interesting thing is there aren't too many options for grabbing sports APIs without paying money. ESPN is one of the few that I found that seems robust and free, which is nice. If you have some needs where you want something different or better, by all means pay for something. But I just wanted to demo this, so I didn't. And what I'm going to do is... let me show you my browser window here. Okay, so the URL is going to give us this, which is, as you can tell, some pretty dense JSON data. And I don't have an automatic JSON beautifier inside of Chrome. Sometimes I use Firefox, which does, but since I have this Chrome window up, I'm going to go to codebeautify.org and their JSON viewer, and then I can load in a URL, same URL there. I won't give you this URL, you might see it on the screen, but it's super long, so I'm not going to try to say it out loud, but just Google ESPN API version 2. They have a deprecated version 1. And okay, so here you can see over on the right, let me see, can I close this ad? No, I can't. I don't know if I can make this bigger without full screening it. I'm not going to attempt that. It could screw some things up for the broadcast. But here you can see this is the structure of this JSON file. So it's just the top of the file is this hierarchy item called object. It has 3 things in it: leagues, events, and events date. So I'm going to open up events. And these are upcoming games, is what's at this scoreboard, men's college basketball scoreboard. So here it tells me there are 5 events. And if I open up the first one, you can see it shows me at events, position 0, name, that's the game name, and that's what I'm printing here. It's a different game here. So this is the TCU Horned Frogs at Kansas Jayhawks. Let me open up the one that we're looking at here. It might be the third one, fourth one. There it is. So that fourth one there, yeah, let me see. Is there a way I can make that bigger? I can probably do a scale up of the font. And let me widen my browser window and then move it over for you a little bit. Please stand by. Okay, so I think that's a little more legible. And so here we can see there's an item inside of events, inside of this number 4, called name, and that gives me the name of the game, sort of the human readable, friendly name. There's also a short name, ORE at UCLA, so that depending on the type of application you're building, you may want a nice, easy short name. And you can see here is an item called date, and that gives us the year, month, day, and then the time, and this is in Zulu time or Greenwich Mean Time. And so that's at 2 o'clock in the morning? No, I think this gives back military time. Is that 2? I can't do that in my head, but what I did was in my code, I have that giving it back to me in my local time and not in military time. So it just says, in this case, 6 p.m. is what it returns. So there is, in this case, there are these 5 different games, and then there's a lot of other details that you can get, which season we're in, competitions, links, and status, which in this case, the game hasn't started yet. I don't know, one of these might be like regular season, postseason, and so on. So there's a lot of data in there depending on your needs. I just wanted to get the names of the games and the date and time of the game. So let's take a look at what that code looks like to do all that. Let me pop this open here. Okay, so this is a work in progress. So there are things that are bound to change and hopefully improve. But you can see here that the first thing I'm doing is that I'm importing some libraries. I've got time, terminal IO, which is a font. I don't think in the end I'm using that. I think I'm using a custom font now, so I can probably get rid of that. And then the Adafruit MagTag library, importing MagTag. Then we have some variables for the refresh. It's doing a once a day refresh, and we're also going to use the low power so that it can just once a day grab this info about the next day games and then go to sleep. So you can preserve the battery life if you want to charge this up just occasionally and then stick it on your fridge or your locker or wherever. That'll allow you to do it without having a USB power plug in it all the time. Right now in the early version, I'm just giving myself this little variable called game number. Which of those available games do I want to look at? And that's where I chose game 4. Let me plug this in actually so that if we make some changes we can see them happen. Oh, you know what? That's not going to work because I don't have it set up for my Wi-Fi here. So we'll save that for another day. So then we have our data source, which you'll recognize this from a lot of MagTag projects. We go to the URL that has the JSON file. That's that site I went to. And right now, the way I'm using it, I have these 2 items, game location and date location. And that's the location inside of that JSON file where we find the data we want. So my hierarchy goes into the events level, then whichever game number I picked, in this case game 4, and then the name field and the date field are what I'm grabbing. This I'm not using at the moment, but where I'm headed, and thanks to Melissa, also thanks to Scott for fixing an error we had with our JSON, by the way. I mentioned there was an error. The Adafruit requests library, I believe, is now merged into the main branch, and it will now work because it was having an issue. I think it was hiccuping on like a double space somewhere or something silly like that. But Melissa's been helping me with this idea of I want to be able to look at that events item in the JSON file, find out how many of them there are, and then I'll be able to iterate through them either on a timer or maybe with one of the buttons on the MagTag. I can pick among the games to show since I don't probably want them all on screen at one time. So this will be used for that, I think, or a version of this. I believe we're grabbing the raw JSON with a different method than this in what's been working lately. Let's see. Then I have a little game name transform function, and this just returns that value. You could also use, as you can see in this earlier version, I was doing things like grabbing a team name and giving it a little string in front of it that said something helpful like team name. And a lot of this code actually came from the NASA or the SpaceX launch project that Ann Barella made, so you'll see some shadows of that in here, including this, where we make a little list of the month names so that we can convert those numbers that come back from the JSON into some nice names. Here is my, there may be a better way to do this, so we'll see once we go through code review, but here is currently what I'm doing. I'm just setting a time zone offset. I know that I'm Pacific time, which is 8 hours subtracted from Greenwich Mean Time or Zulu time, so that's how I'm setting that here. I'm not doing anything fancy with location or the internet, my router, nothing like that. Then in these date transforms, this is where we pull apart this value that's returned from the JSON and just go marching through the characters. So characters 5 and 6 give us the month, 8 and 9 give us the day, and so on. And here's my little math that may or may not be correct, but I think it's working right now for subtracting my time zone from that, but not giving me a negative number, so I'm getting an absolute of that. It could be very wrong, but it seems right. I need to verify. There's also a provision here for using 24-hour time. Then we set up the MagTag with the data source, which is that URL. And in this case, this might change, but right now I'm also giving it an explicit JSON path right here. And those are the two places that it goes and grabs those two values that it returns. Then I'm adding in a text item, setting the first line to be NCAA men's basketball, then a couple of other items, which is where the game name and the date are going to end up. And then this is the main function that runs right here, the main loop that runs, which is we connect using the Wi-Fi and our secrets.py file to get onto the internet. And then the value is simply this magtag.fetch function, and it goes and returns whichever values we asked for. In my case, it's going to be those two things, value and value 2, which are the team name, or game name rather, and date. Then we have some error correction there. We sleep for a couple seconds, and then we go into this deep sleep mode, and it will then refresh, so it goes into a very, very low power consumption, then it'll refresh once a day. So I think that covers it. Hopefully that looks interesting and answers some questions for you, particularly if you're interested in reading this kind of data. If you go and check out that API, there's a lot of different sports that you can look at. I'm going to do basketball right now, but you could probably update this. The format, I'm guessing, is very similar from sport to sport. So get that thing out of the way and show this here. You can also fancy up the graphics, maybe make some logos or frames that are appropriate for the sport that you're bringing up. You might even be able to use multiple sports depending on how fancy you want to get with your code and have it cycle through the things that are in season that you care about. So I think that's going to do it. Let's see, do we have any questions or thoughts over in the chats? I'll take a look. Someone confirmed that game is canceled due to COVID. Bummer. Thanks, Tim Orling over in YouTube, who pointed out that's not actually happening. And I wonder, that may be this, maybe I need to add to this, if I look back at the JSON here, this status postponed, there you go. Yeah, so I probably should add that to it and say, this is a dream you may have had that we would have this game, but it's postponed due to COVID. I wonder if that's the case with all these games. I don't know. I'm actually not I don't watch sports very often, so I'm out of the loop on it, sorry. All right, that's going to do it for today. Thank you, everyone, for stopping by. Little reminder, I'll be doing another JP's Product Pick of the Week next Tuesday, so stop on by at the same time, 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, if you are interested in seeing what I've got to show you that week, and very possibly have a big discount on it. Most of our items do. And that's going to do it. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time. For Adafruit Industries, I'm John Park. This has been John Park's Workshop. Bye-bye.